February, which means it is time for my January wrap-up. This is the first wrap-up I have done in quite a while. Sorry for not having a video last week. I was sick and it was like crazy time at school and that was a terrible combination, so there was no video. But I think I've been doing a little bit better so far this year and I'm hoping I can keep that up. I am going to start today talking about two books that I did not actually read in January, but they came out in January. I have videos for both of these, so definitely check those out. The first is Famous in a Small Town by Emma Mills. This was my second Emma Mills book. Like I said, I have a video for this. I released my video the day this book came out. I really enjoyed this book. It's very cute. There are some deeper themes, but not too deep. Check out my video review for this, read it. It was a lot of fun. The other one that I read an arc of before it came out but released a video for this month was Only a Breath Apart by Katie McGarry. And funny story, so in my video for this I said I was not sure of the name of it because there are two different names on this. I actually got into a mini conversation with Katie McGarry on Twitter about the reason for that, because she responded to my video saying, yeah, it was supposed to be called Breathe, but then they changed it to Only a Breath Apart, sorry for the confusion. And I'm like, yeah, I figured, I just didn't want people to not be able to find it. So yeah, got in a little conversation with her about it. Exciting. I really like this book. It might be my favorite of hers. I think it is my favorite of hers. I really enjoyed it. Go read it. If you've read any Katie McGarry and enjoyed it before, definitely read this one. It's not one to miss. I am now going to get into the books that I actually finished in January. I didn't do as well as I had hoped this month, and I will explain why when I get to a certain book later. A ton of books came out this month that I had wanted to read immediately. That happened with some of them, that did not happen with all of them. So I will talk about those as I get there. The first book that I finished in January, I believe I had started in December, Eliza and Her Monsters. I've had this book for so long. It has literally been coming back and forth every time I've gone to New Jersey for the past like year and a half because I kept really wanting to read this book. I just always had other things that I was putting above it for some reason. I enjoyed this book so much. It's one of those ones that I like really connected with on multiple levels. Like, I think the last time I connected on this many different but like similar levels was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, which I read like at least 5 or 6 years ago. But I adored the story. It's about a girl named Eliza who is secretly writing a comic strip that has kind of taken off online, and she has this whole fandom that follows her but has no idea who she is. And then a boy who's a fan of her comic strip comes to her school, and it turns out he's actually a semi-famous fan fiction writer of her comic strip. And things develop, and it's adorable, and I connected to it on like a fandom level, and on like a timidness, shyness level, and on like a million different levels. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't like the most brilliant thing in the entire world. It takes a lot for me to give something 5 stars, but this was definitely a very strong 4 stars. I adored this book. I really did. Definitely read it if you're at all into like the fandom world or have hidden dreams or not so hidden dreams of being a famous writer. I loved this on so many different levels. So many. It was wonderful. Next, I audiobooked the book Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. I loved this book a lot. It's in prose. So the audiobook was only, I think, 2.5 hours long, even though it is like a decent length book if you get it in print. But the whole thing is told in prose. The whole thing takes place in the course of 1 minute when a boy whose brother was just killed by a drive-by shooting is convinced he knows who killed him and now grabs the gun and is on his way to go pay him back for killing his brother. Yeah, so the whole thing takes place in 1 minute while he is riding the elevator down to go try to kill somebody as payback. And at every floor, a person who has been killed from his past joins and starts making him question everything he knows and believes. And it was heartbreaking, but absolutely wonderful. I was sobbing on my way to school and home from school, and it was just great. It was fantastic. Definitely read that if you have not already. Next, I read an arc. Well, it was an arc, but now it's out. How She Died, How I Lived. This book is about a girl who is one of 5 people that a boy named Kyle texted one day, and only one of those 5 girls actually responded to that text and went to go see him, and she was murdered. So this one follows one of the girls that did not go, and so they've all kind of become friendly in this, like, it could have been us, but it wasn't, and we escaped this, and we should be happy about that, but it's also really difficult kind of way. This book takes place 1 year after the murder, and I think he was already convicted, and they're now going to decide if he gets the death penalty or not. So there's still trial happening, and meanwhile she is getting very close to the boyfriend of the girl who died a year ago. I really enjoyed this. It made me think about a lot of things. I liked the journey. I liked the things that she learned. I really liked the relationship between her and the ex-boyfriend. I don't know. Complicated situation. At times I thought like it was a little too fast, or a little bit, like there were things that should have been considered more, but I mean, there's also a point where like there's a whole other perspective there that we're not seeing, so we don't know what's going on the other side of that. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I was expecting more of a mystery aspect to it, but the murder was solved already when the book started, so that's not really part of the story. It's more just how these different people feel about the death penalty is kind of the big thing, and how they're able to move on with this, like, maybe it would have been better if it had been me feeling, which is terrible. But yeah, it was pretty good. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read a book I was so excited for that came out this month. Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen McManus. I keep meaning to do a video for this, and I still think I will at some point. Karen McManus wrote One of Us is Lying, which is my most viewed video, which is why I was hoping I'd already have this video up by now, but I don't. I actually went to go see her a couple days ago, so this book is now signed. Yay! And it turns out apparently Karen McManus and I have like the same writer origin story, and her first book was on the bestseller list, so maybe that's a good sign? Who knows? This one, even though the first one had 1 in it and this has 2 in it and the cover looks related, they are not related stories at all. In fact, Karen McManus is currently finishing up a sequel for One of Us is Lying, but it's not this. This one is about a girl who is moving back in with her grandmother because her mother is in rehab. And she and her twin are moving in with their grandmother in a town where their aunt disappeared 20 years before, something like that. And then 5 years ago, a beauty queen was murdered. So they come in and weird things immediately start happening the second they get to the town. And there are these threats about people at homecoming not being safe. And then a girl disappears. And the main character in this kind of sees herself as a mini Nancy Drew and thinks that she knows all about murders because she watches a lot of television and reads a lot of crime books, I think. So she decides that she is going to figure all of this out. Meanwhile, there's a boy named Malcolm whose brother was dating the girl that disappeared 5 years before, and everybody thinks that he's the one that killed her, but he was never charged, probably because there was evidence showing he was not the person that killed her. But now his little brother, Malcolm, is a senior in high school, and everybody's kind of looking his way and his family's way when all of these things start happening. So it's told from 2 very different perspectives. One is the family member of a previous victim, and the other is the family member of a previous suspect. But the 2 of them kind of come together and start working together to try to figure a lot of this out. and I really enjoyed it. I was able to predict a lot of the twists and turns. I think it was my writer brain working, and apparently she and I have the same writer brain, so that explains it. Really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I did not like it quite as much as One of Us is Lying, but I did really enjoy it. It was fantastic. It was another wonderful Karen M. McManus book. Definitely read it, especially if you liked One of Us is Lying. But if you didn't read that one, go read that one. Next, I listened to another audiobook, A Night Divided by Jennifer A. Nielsen. I don't usually like historical fiction, but I really did enjoy this one. It takes place during the rise of the Berlin Wall, where the main character was, I believe, 8 years old when the wall went up, and her family ended up being separated because her father and brother had gone to the west to try to find a new home for them, and the wall went up while they were searching before they came back and led the others there. So there are 3 people on the east, which is the Russian communist-run side of Berlin, and then 2 on the west, which is the democratic side of Berlin. And one day she sees her dad doing a dance that she figures out means dig a hole, and believes that her dad wants her and her brother to dig from this old house, this old abandoned house, under the wall to get to the other side, which puts their lives at risk, but they're willing to do it because they hate their lives and they want to see their family again. I gave it 5 stars. It was wonderful. By that time, it was 4 years later, so the little girl is 12 now and taking this major risk because she thinks it's important. And it's very timely as well for some of the things happening in the world right now. I actually don't know as much about the Berlin Wall as I probably should. I know it came down like a month before I was born, and that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge of the Berlin Wall up until now. But I did a little bit of research once I was reading this because I ended up getting really interested. I really, really, really enjoyed that book. It had a lot of amazing themes. It was like sacrifice and the importance of family and friendship and honesty and doing the right thing even when it's supposed to be the wrong thing. It was fantastic. I really, really, really liked it, and I really recommend it if you have not already read that. The final book that I finished in January was also an audiobook, and I will explain why in a moment. It was Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. This one, I only gave 3 stars, but I think it's because I listened to it in audiobook. It is about a girl who meets another girl and kind of wants her life, I guess. So the girl's very poor and has had a sad history, and then she meets this very wealthy, free-spirited girl and is kind of just sucked into her world. A lot of things happen that I'm not going to get into. The story is actually told in reverse, so it starts at the very end and you kind of go backwards to see how they got there. Listening to this in audiobook, that was very, very confusing. I literally had no idea what was going on for the first, I think, hour and a half of that book. And then there were a couple other times I was a little confused. Once I finally figured out that it was going backwards, it made more sense and I definitely enjoyed it more. But that first hour and a half that I just like completely missed definitely took away from my score. I only gave it 3 stars. I'm very curious what my rating would have been had I been reading it in physical form. I do not recommend the audiobook for this. At least, like, if you can just sit there and like really listen carefully to it, fine. I listen to audiobooks while I'm driving, so that was very difficult with this one. So the reason I did not read any more physical books is because the same day that Two Can Keep a Secret came out, so did Black Enough. This is an anthology of stories from Black authors that are all about like what it means to be Black enough, for people questioning if they are Black enough for whatever situation. My issue, first of all, this is signed by 4 of the authors, which was great. I went to an author event, and I will talk more about that in one moment because I also got 1 more book signed. 2, I also got All American Boys signed by Jason Reynolds, and he's wonderful. I went to that signing and it was great, and I love these authors. I loved hearing them talk. It was wonderful. I always get so excited about anthologies because I love so many of the authors that are writing for them, and I forget how difficult I find it reading anthologies. I always struggle with it because, first of all, you never love every single story in an anthology, whereas like when you're reading one book, you can love that whole story, and it's worth getting through the slightly boring parts to get to the amazing parts. With an anthology, it's kind of hard to get through some of the stories that you don't love as much. Not only that, but I find with anthologies, I'm like just starting to really get into the story and then it ends. So it's kind of hard to push myself to keep reading when like just as I'm getting into it, it's over. And then I'm meeting new characters, and then just as I'm getting into those, it's over. So I did really like some of the stories I've read in this so far. I just find it so difficult to get through anthologies. So I might just like finish the story I'm on right now and then read something else, because there's so many other books that I'm about to talk about that I got my hands on this month that I have not touched because I've been trying to work my way through this one for 2 weeks. And I might just like read something and then read another story in this, read something else, read another story in this. So you might not see this as a book I finished for a few months, but I will continue to make my way through it because some of the stories I do absolutely enjoy and I am really liking it. It's just anthologies are hard for me to read straight through, so I might not do it to myself anymore. I am now going to get into the books that I did not read in January, but I picked up in January. About half of these came out in January. I have just not had a chance to read them yet because I was reading Black Enough, and about half of them are ones I picked up at various events or something. Actually, I think almost all of them came out in January. But anyway, first is one that did not come out this January, but I got at the author event for Black Enough. It is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I'm so sorry if I just butchered her name. This is a book I've been wanting to read for a while. I just had not gotten my hands on for various reasons, but she was at the Black Enough event. She was the moderator of the event, even though she's not one of the writers of the book because she is not Black. But she is Latinx, and I am so excited to read this book. I've heard absolutely amazing things about it. This is signed, and I'm going to read it as soon as possible. Next is one where I audiobooked the first book in the series this year. I've audiobooked almost every book I've read by this author, but Defy the World by Claudia Gray. This is actually a library book that I just picked up a couple days ago when I was getting a book for a friend, and it will, I think, be my first Claudia Gray book that I read in physical form because I've audiobooked every single one before. I'm hoping I can fit it in before I have to return the book to the library, or hoping I can renew it. I'm not sure. I really enjoyed the first one in this series, and I'm hoping that I get to this one and can read it soon. It's much bigger than I thought it would be, so we'll see about that. It's not my top priority of the books that I got my hands on this month, so we'll see. Next is one that caused a little bit of drama in my life. Undying by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This is the sequel to Unearthed, which I read, I think, like exactly a year ago, and I really, really liked it. I was super excited for this book. I thought it came out the same day as Two Can Keep a Secret and Black Enough, but apparently it didn't. It came out like 2 weeks later. Whatever, I have it now, and I'm super excited. And this is definitely a high priority book because I really, really, really enjoyed the first one, and I remember exactly where I was when I finished the first one. I was kind of freaking out. So yeah, I need to read this, and I've loved every single other book that they have written, especially Amy Kaufman. I've loved every single book that Amy Kaufman has co-written with anybody, and I'm excited. Yeah. Next, this one has like a whole bunch of things sticking out of it because it's signed now. I got Come Find Me by Megan Miranda. This I picked up at the event where I got Two Can Keep a Secret signed because they were there together. This is her newest young adult book. I've never read any Megan Miranda before, but it's supposed to be good. It's thriller. It's about a missing person where everybody is a suspect. I believe this is the one where there are two brothers. Yeah, there are two brothers. No, not brothers to each other. There are two people that have brothers that have disappeared, and they're intertwined in some way, I think. I don't know. I forget. I read the back a while ago, and I haven't read the actual book yet, so I will remember once I read the actual book. The final book that I picked up this month that I'm super, 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 super excited about, King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is a book about Prince Nikolai, who, oh my god, I loved him in the Grisha series, though I didn't want him like with Alina, but I loved him. And I'm so excited to read his own story. I've already heard amazing things. This just came out this past Tuesday, and I have a friend that read it on Tuesday, and I'm so excited to read this one. I'm hoping I remember enough of the Grisha trilogy to fully enjoy it. I might need to go refresh myself a little bit. But yeah, I'm so excited for this book. This is probably my top priority right now, moving into February. Yeah, that is it for my January wrap-up. Wish me luck in February. Hopefully I will have a fantastic wrap-up for you at the end of next month, this month now. But for now, follow me on Twitter at ReaderGonnaRead, just like my YouTube channel. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And subscribe by clicking down below or up there. I will talk to you next time. Goodbye! Hey, Ellie and Dobby here. Like the video? Come subscribe. Do it right now. Click it.